So I have spent the whole day or the whole afternoon since 12 watching court cases on the internet. And I was like, can't believe I watched court cases all day. Like, I've been watching a court case for like 4 days now. And it's just so long that I just watched little bits of it. And I'm like, it's amazing that it goes for so long. And then I'm sort of reflecting my own court cases that I've sort of been involved in, and they're not half as long. No, they are pretty long. They can be pretty long. But that was without trying. They can go for like an afternoon or a day. So 3 or 4 hours in a court can go really quickly. I think most of the court cases I've been involved with are like, I don't know, 1 to 2 hours, I guess. But yeah, but this one's obviously like all day, goes for weeks, and it's like, oh my gosh, how expensive would that be? I hardly ever hire lawyers who are like expensive. I'm usually going for the cheaper options, and but then sometimes I've paid for lawyers and they just do. Sometimes they just do nothing. They just take your money and they don't say anything in court. They just go, nothing further to add, and then they like sit down, and then that's all they say for the whole duration of the court. And then so you've basically paid for them to get dressed, show up on time, sit and stand, and then say one sentence, really. And they're charging you like $15,000 for that privilege, and you're like going, piss off. No, but I got a reduction because the lawyer had absolutely they didn't do anything. I mean, I may as well have gone in without a lawyer. I would have impressed just as much. I don't know anything about law, and I know I should be studying little bits of pieces of it, but to have it make sense. But I think I did study law in the past because I remember watching not Miscongeniality, the other one with what's her face with the blue eyes, um, Miss the pink in the pink dress, Reese Witherspoon in whatever one she played. And I remember watching that, and I think I was like learning about law at the time, and I was quite good, but I couldn't. I don't remember. I don't remember though graduating, but I was maybe I was watching it when I was doing a law case or something and reading up. That was probably what I was doing. I was probably reading up on law to prepare myself for showing up at a court and being my own speaker, because I did that once or twice at the beginning when I was being exposed to court cases, just showing up and giving my 2 cents. And I was sort of doing a little bit of study on law in some way. But I think I might have actually gone to a course because I sort of remember, I don't know where it was and I don't know when it was, but I sort of remember being congratulated for having had thought thoroughly in connection to a court case. So it was quite similar to that thing, that show. What, I don't know what it's called. It's where she's wearing the pink dress, and it was quite similar to that, but I can't remember when or how I had ever gone to a class on law. But I sort of half remember it. I'm thinking um, that I have possibly studied law sometime, and I was quite good at thinking around things, but then on other concepts I was sort of a bit lost. So I can't remember precisely that, but I have a feeling I may have at some stage, because I often do a lot of things. I think I've even done some uni, but in relation to writing, but my writing had not been strong enough. This was before Grammarly and everything, and so I was condemned for having had thought that I could do a uni course in writing. And I think I did another uni course in connection to the Uni of New South Wales, but I can't remember why I wouldn't have graduated. I've probably been seen as not being smart enough, which is why I should go to specific unis, because some unis are like really snobbish and they're like, we don't like your work. And you're like, what's wrong with my work? And they're like, oh, you can't tell, sort of thing. But it's possible that I may have started some uni courses somewhere, but I can't quite remember. So I've never graduated from uni. Otherwise, I'd have a diploma, and surely I would have remembered. Unless it's something that I've lost. Sometimes I get caught in places where that floods and stuff, and I lose things. So, but I don't really remember graduating particularly. But I might have. I might have. You never know. But yeah. Anyway, I was watching all these law cases, and I was just like reflecting on my own lawsuits a little bit, and while watching these, and it's like these ones are like so much more expensive, and you can tell that they must be like spending lots of money just to be there, and yeah, just reflecting while I'm watching, and then half listening. I was half sleeping in the other past couple of days while listening to it. I'd be like listening to it and go to bed listening to it and end up sleeping, but it was just so long that, but I do recall it's a really old lawsuit, and it says like it's in 2015 or 2017, but I remember it actually being from early 2000s because it was on TV, early to mid 2000s, because it was on TV, and even back then it had the dates set in the future. And so, I had been at an airport or somewhere, and there were all these people huddled around the screens, watching this case, which had been aired. And even back then, it was like the dates were like set in the future, and everyone's like, why are the dates set in the future? As though it's this like, and someone said, oh, it's to sort of offer protection to, so someone gave an explanation as to why they have incorrect dates. So I sort of remember it being on TV like ages ago, and sort of being at an airport and passing these people who were watching it, and they were discussing the court case, and it was really weird. So I think it was from ages ago, but on like the internet and stuff, they say it's from like 2015 or 2017 or something. But it's actually from like 2000s, because I remember that being on TV, and I remember thinking, like listening to this conversation and noticing that the dates were like set in the future, and they were saying, what's wrong with the dates? Why is it in the future? And it's like, and they were having discussion. I was like, yeah, so, and it's so weird because sometimes I think like things from 2000 feel like, it's from like the 1980s, but it's 2000, and it's like, oh gee, all that time ago, it's been like 20 years since 2000, and it's like all that time ago is like the more recent stuff, and you're like going, oh gee, that was a long time ago, but it feels like it's like 1980s now. 2000s, and like 2000s like is when I was sort of in my 20s and growing up and stuff, and it's like, it's really weird how it feels like 2000s is like the new 1980s and stuff, because like in 2000s you're thinking like 1980s is like the old fashioned era, and now it's like 2000 is like the 1980s era. It's like the old fashioned era now. But yeah, I do remember like it sort of being played then, and it was like, yeah, so I think it's from ages ago actually. even though on the internet it says it's like 2015, 2017, like the dates say in the program that it was shown with permission. And yeah, but I think it was like from 2000, early to mid 2000s. So I'll just take a note of that, um, because I sort of vaguely remember having had seen it before on TV. I just never noticed it because I never. Sometimes I don't watch the TV, and I like now I'm not watching the TV, and I don't really notice things, and they don't really capture my attention enough to watch them. And I saw it on the internet, and I was like, yeah, I saw like the little clips of this when I was at the airport. It just like in early 2000s, and yeah, and now it's like officially like set in the 2015 to 2017 when it was like ages ago. So it's really weird that. So that was like the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and I was like, I just came upon it on YouTube like last week, and I was like, I've been sort of flipping through all these, clips that I have on it. It's not important or anything. It's just like I was just flipping through just out of interest, vague interest, so as something I'd never watched, never bothered to watch before. And then I researched it a little on the internet to see what the end jurisdiction is, because after watching all these clips on the internet, it's like they don't have the end jurisdiction where, you know, one side was found guilty and the other side innocent, or whatever, and the outline of their punishment. So whatever the end jurisdiction is. And I was like, I don't think the program actually ever published that, the end jurisdiction. So it's really weird that, because I think that's what a lot of people would have wanted. But I think even at the time when it was first released, people were saying, oh, what about the end? And because once again, people were watching it like on public TVs, and I was captured. Someone say, oh, what about the end? The end of it, and it's like, yeah, what about the end of it? And you can look on the internet all you want, but there's no end. Like they don't have the end jurisdiction, and you're like, oh, why is that? But I sort of tried to read up on it and see if there was an article that said the end jurisdiction, and it said like that Johnny got a bunch of Amber's money is in as a result of the case having had been closed, and then Johnny actually got defamed apparently. So, and I was surprised by that because I thought he was still doing movies, and he is. His last movie was from 2000, so it hasn't derailed him completely, obviously, but I hadn't even known like he'd grown sort of aged looking now. So, he's sort of been derailed. Like I was just looking at some of his pictures right then, and it's like, oh, he looks quite aged. But so that in itself will derail your career. No, but yeah, I wouldn't expect him to stop doing movies completely. I'd find it hard for someone who's like, quite famous to just have movies stop, all of a sudden. I mean, that's hard. That would be hard to digest, I think. I think they would do less movies but not have it stop. And when I read the articles saying, oh, his career's like in the pits, I was like, oh, are you sure? Because everyone's still like thinks of him as famous, and they love many of his movies, and it's like, I was like, oh, is that a correct article? And so I researched it a little bit, and it's like, no, he's not. He hasn't finished. His career hasn't ended. He's still doing movies. So I haven't watched any of his later movies. The last movie that I saw with him in it was possibly the Pirates of the Caribbean. And it did have an article, funnily enough, of him not not being allowed to do any more Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm like thinking, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Because I only went up to like the third or fourth um, sequel to the first one, and it was terrible. Um, Surely they must have made quite a lot of money because, but I thought they were terrible. I only like the first like two. I'm not sure if I saw the third one, but yeah, yeah, and I was like, is that like really a bad thing that he was taken off the films? Because I just find after the first couple that the movie's qualities were just terrible, and I was like, oh, this is so terrible. I didn't like it at all. But obviously, they must be have made money with them for throughout the sequels because um, it was a big deal that he had been taken off the plank of having had starred in those films. But gee, I just thought, is that really a bad thing? Because your career is going to keep going in the pits if you keep doing this movie. But it might be he might have lost millions not being permitted to do more and more of this pirates movie. But I personally don't think it's a bad thing that any sequels to Pirates of the Caribbean stop being made, because I think they're so bad that they should be stopped before you keep sailing on what was obviously a big hit, but you can't keep sailing on it just because people buy it. I mean, you can, but I mean the quality is probably tainting their career anyway. So it's good to get off that rush of fame and move on to something else before you realize that you're just gutting your career by staying on the sequels to something that's already come and gone. So I was so glad that, as far as I'm concerned, there's been no more Pirates of the Caribbean for a while. So, but I would be so glad for there not to be any more, because I think it was hanging around a bit too long already. So, um, yeah. So I mean, I liked the first two, but then after the third one and the fourth one, it's like totally lost its interest, and so I'm like going, why are people continue making these? And it's like obviously they're making money, but to me, they totally lost the cycle of interest. Um, so yeah, so I don't think that's a bad thing that anyone gets chucked off that, because I don't think any more Pirates of the Caribbean should be made anyway. So, but anyway, but yeah, but that little case seemed to be unfinished. They didn't publish the end of it, and you're like going, why didn't they publish the end of it? And it's like, I don't know, but I think a lot of people would have wanted for it to be the end, so there to be an end, like the end's jurisdiction of who won and who lost, rather than just the build up towards it. Because it's like, without the end, it's like, why have you watched so much of it? And it's like the end would just complete it, and it'd be like, this is someone who totally missed the hype when it was first shown, but only just got wind of the versions of for free off the internet. So, but yeah, but you don't come across things like that very often, actually. Really long, large lawsuits. It's probably because a lot of people can't afford them, I guess. But um, yeah. But I know that they've done that with other actors. I just haven't really looked. But they're mostly for like drinking, drugs, or criminal activity, and this one was like for domestic violence and defame and stuff. So it's a bit of a lighter subject. I think it's more watchable in a way. than watching someone. But you know, everyone's gonna boo me about that because they think that's wrong. But for me, who likes a lot of things in life, I don't like to necessarily look at things that are like all about drugs or drinking or whatever. So um, I think it's a lighter side of a court issue, and yeah, but it was vaguely interesting to watch. I mean, I was sort of just reflecting about my own issues that I've had in courts and things, and yeah, while watching these, and yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah. Anyway, that's what I did with my Sunday off. And I think I should. It's getting dark, so I should go out for another walk. I went for a walk. I walked the dog today. Yay! I should do a video of that because it's like such a difficult thing to do with that. Um, but anyway, I was doing it semi-successfully. Literally, we just do like half a meter, and then I have to tell them to stop because they're not walking with them. They're choking themselves on the lead too much, and they just want to like lead, and you're like, no, you're trying to teach the dog not to lead, and it's not my dog, but I'm like to be able to have the ability to walk the dog. Anyway, I better go out for another walk, and then I'm gonna have dinner.